Story number 1. The Halloween Visitor. It was the night of Halloween, and the Johnson family had just finished decorating their cozy suburban home. With pumpkins on the porch and eerie cobwebs hanging in the windows, they were ready for a night of trick-or-treating. The evening went by in a blur of laughter and candy. As the clock neared midnight, the Johnsons began to wind down, preparing to go to bed. That's when they heard it, a faint, eerie melody wafting through the autumn breeze. It was a haunting tune that seemed to beckon them from the darkness outside. Mr. Johnson, always curious and brave, decided to investigate. He slipped on his coat and stepped onto the porch, the cool night air sending a shiver down his spine. The music led him down the dimly lit street, past houses shrouded in darkness. The further he walked, the more the tune seemed to envelop him, drawing him deeper into the night. Finally, he arrived at a small, forgotten cemetery at the edge of town. The source of the music became clear. It emanated from an old, weathered tombstone. The name on the tombstone read, Eleanor Wilkins. As Mr. Johnson approached, the music intensified, filling the air with an eerie, otherworldly melody. He felt a presence, as if someone were watching him. He whispered, "Who are you?" The music ceased abruptly, and a chilling gust of wind rustled the leaves. Then, a soft voice replied, "I am Eleanor, a lost soul seeking solace." Mr. Johnson, though startled, felt a pang of sympathy for the disembodied voice. "How can I help you, Eleanor?" Eleanor's voice grew sorrowful. "I have been trapped here for centuries, unable to move on. I need someone to set me free." With a trembling hand, Mr. Johnson agreed to help. Eleanor's voice guided him to a hidden compartment beneath her tombstone. Inside, he found a small, ancient key. "Take this key," she said, "and use it to unlock the chest in your attic. Inside, you will find a book that holds the key to my release." Mr. Johnson did as instructed, climbing the creaky stairs to the attic. He located the old chest and unlocked it with the key. Inside, he found a dusty book bound in leather. The book told the story of Eleanor Wilkins, a talented musician who had been wrongfully accused of witchcraft in the 17th century and buried in an unmarked grave. Her spirit had been trapped in the mortal realm ever since. To free Eleanor, Mr. Johnson needed to gather the townspeople at the cemetery on the next Halloween night and perform a ritual described in the book. He was skeptical, but determined to help Eleanor find peace. As the next Halloween approached, Mr. Johnson shared Eleanor's story with the town, and they agreed to participate in the ritual. They gathered at the cemetery, holding candles and chanting incantations from the book. The night was filled with an eerie stillness, broken only by the soft, haunting melody of Eleanor's music. Suddenly, a luminous figure appeared before them. It was Eleanor herself. With a final melancholic tune, she was set free from her earthly prison, vanishing into the night. The townspeople felt a sense of closure and relief, knowing they had helped a lost soul find peace. From that Halloween onward, the Johnsons continued to decorate their home, but they did so with a newfound appreciation for the mysteries that lay hidden in the darkness of the night. Story number 2. The Haunted Antique Store. In the heart of a quaint, historic town, there stood an antique store unlike any other. Evelyn's Emporium was renowned for its collection of rare and ancient artifacts. It was a place where history whispered from every corner and where mysteries lingered in the air. Evelyn, the enigmatic owner, was known for her ability to find the most obscure and valuable items. However, there was one section of her store that she kept locked away, accessible only to a select few who dared to inquire. The town's residents had always been intrigued by the locked section and the rumors that surrounded it. Some said it contained cursed objects, while others believed it held the key to unlocking ancient secrets. One October evening, a curious visitor named Laura entered Evelyn's Emporium. She had heard whispers about the locked section and was determined to uncover its mysteries. As she browsed the store, her eyes were drawn to an ornate keychain hanging on the wall. Laura approached Evelyn and inquired about the keychain. Evelyn's eyes twinkled with amusement as she handed it to her. "Ah, the key to the mysteries," she said cryptically. With the keychain in hand, Laura was granted access to the forbidden section. It was a dimly lit room filled with artifacts that seemed to emanate an aura of power and mystery. As Laura explored the room, she came across an ancient mirror. It was ornately framed with intricate carvings of mythical creatures. The mirror seemed to beckon her, its surface shimmering with an otherworldly light. Unable to resist, Laura gazed into the mirror. At first, she saw her own reflection, but it soon began to shift and change. She found herself transported to a different time and place, standing in a grand ballroom filled with people in elegant 19th century attire. Laura was entranced by the scene before her, but something felt amiss. The people in the ballroom seemed frozen in time, their faces etched with expressions of fear and despair. As Laura continued to watch, she noticed a figure in the mirror's reflection, a woman in a tattered, blood-stained dress, her eyes filled with sorrow. The woman's spectral hand reached out, as if pleading for help. Terrified, Laura tried to pull away from the mirror, but it held her in its grip. The room around her began to fade, and she felt herself being pulled deeper into the mirror's world. Inside the mirror, Laura found herself face to face with the spectral woman. The woman introduced herself as Isabella, a young bride who had been cursed and trapped within the mirror for centuries. Isabella's tragic tale unfolded before Laura's eyes. She had been accused of witchcraft on her wedding day and sentenced to be sealed within the mirror as punishment. Her soul had been trapped in a timeless limbo ever since. Determined to help Isabella, Laura sought guidance from Evelyn. With the store owner's assistance, they discovered a way to break the curse and set Isabella free. The process was not without risks, as it required a powerful ritual that could unleash dark forces. Laura and Evelyn gathered the necessary materials and prepared for the ritual. On the night of a full moon, they stood before the mirror in Evelyn's emporium, their voices raised in a chant that resonated with ancient power. The mirror trembled, and Isabella's form began to waver. With a final burst of energy, the curse was shattered, and Isabella was freed from her spectral prison. She thanked Laura and Evelyn before vanishing into the ethereal realm. Evelyn's emporium continued to hold its mysteries, but it was no longer haunted by Isabella's presence. Laura left with a newfound appreciation for the power of history and the enduring spirit of those who had been wronged in the past. Story number 3. The Phantom Lighthouse Keeper. Perched on the rocky cliffs overlooking the turbulent sea, the old harbor lighthouse had long been a beacon of safety for ships navigating the treacherous waters. But it was also known for a chilling legend that had haunted the coastal town for generations. Generations of lighthouse keepers had served faithfully, but none had experienced what Samuel Morrison did on that fateful October night. Samuel was a middle-aged man who had recently taken up the role of the lighthouse keeper. He had heard the tales of the phantom lighthouse keeper, but he was skeptical, attributing them to the overactive imaginations of the townspeople. One stormy October evening, as the sea raged and the waves crashed against the cliffs, Samuel was in the lighthouse, tending to his duties. The wind howled outside, and the rain battered the windows. As the night wore on, Samuel heard a faint, rhythmic knocking coming from the door of the lighthouse. He opened it, expecting to find a fellow townsman seeking refuge from the storm. But to his surprise, there was no one there. Confused, Samuel closed the door and returned to his duties. The knocking continued intermittently, each time growing louder and more persistent. He ventured outside, searching for the source of the sound, but the storm made it nearly impossible to see. Back inside the lighthouse, Samuel noticed a strange phenomenon. The beam of light from the lighthouse was casting a shadow. It shouldn't have been possible, as there was nothing obstructing the light's path. As he stared at the shadow, it began to take shape, a human shape. It was the figure of a man, wearing the tattered clothes of a 19th-century lighthouse keeper. Frozen with fear, Samuel watched as the phantom figure went about the motions of tending to the lighthouse. He adjusted the lamp, turned the gears, and even waved to an invisible ship out at sea. Samuel's mind raced as he realized that he was witnessing the ghostly apparition of the long-deceased lighthouse keeper. The legend had been true all along. The phantom keeper seemed unaware of Samuel's presence, lost in his eternal duty. As the storm raged on, Samuel couldn't tear his eyes away from the spectral figure. Hours passed, and Samuel felt a deep sense of empathy for the ghostly keeper. He began to speak to him, sharing stories of the lighthouse's history and the town's maritime traditions. To Samuel's surprise, the phantom keeper responded with nods and gestures, as if understanding his words. It was as if the ghost had been waiting for someone to acknowledge his existence. As dawn broke and the storm subsided, the ghostly figure faded into the early morning light, leaving Samuel alone in the lighthouse once more. In the days that followed, Samuel became obsessed with uncovering the identity of the phantom lighthouse keeper. He delved into the town's archives and discovered the tragic story of Captain Jonathan Turner, the lighthouse keeper who had gone missing during a terrible storm in the 1800s. Samuel realized that the restless spirit he had encountered was none other than Captain Turner himself, doomed to repeat his duties for eternity. Determined to help the captain find peace, Samuel embarked on a quest to unravel the mystery of his disappearance. Through a series of rituals and offerings, Samuel managed to communicate with the captain's spirit and guide him toward the afterlife. As Captain Turner's spectral form dissipated one final time, a sense of closure washed over Samuel. The legend of the phantom lighthouse keeper lived on in the town, but it was no longer a haunting presence. Samuel had helped the lost soul find its way, and the old harbor lighthouse continued to shine as a symbol of hope and guidance for sailors navigating the treacherous waters. The town's residents, who had once feared the legend, now looked upon the lighthouse with a sense of reverence, knowing that its history was intertwined with the eternal spirit of a dedicated lighthouse keeper